Who was Frederick Law Olmsted? Welcome back to the channel, history buffs and nature lovers. Today we're diving into the untold story of Frederick Law Olmsted, the man who didn't just design parks, he revolutionized how Americans experience nature in the heart of bustling cities. Born on April 26, 1822 in Hartford, Connecticut, Olmsted wasn't always the father of American landscape architecture. In fact, he stumbled into it later in life, after a whirlwind of careers that make his story feel like an epic adventure novel. You might know him as the genius behind Central Park, but did you know he was also a journalist who exposed the horrors of slavery, a farmer who experimented with progressive agriculture, and a visionary who fought to preserve Yosemite? By the end of this deep dive, you'll see why his ideas are more relevant today than ever, in an era of urban sprawl and climate change. Stick around, we've got untold facts, hidden struggles, and a legacy that touches every major city in America. Let's get started. Early life, from sailor to farmer. Olmsted's early years were anything but straightforward, a classic case of a late bloomer finding his path. Growing up in a well-to-do family, his father, John Olmsted, was a dry goods merchant who loved nature and took young Frederick on scenic drives through New England's countryside. These outings planted the seeds, pun intended, for his future passion. But Olmsted wasn't a straight-A student. He suffered from sumac poisoning as a teen, which damaged his eyes and derailed formal education. Instead, at 14, he apprenticed as a surveyor, learning to map land with precision. Then adventure called. In 1843, at 21, he shipped out as a merchant seaman to China. Imagine the culture shock, storms at sea, exotic ports, and a bout of scurvy that left him rethinking his life. Back home, he tried journalism briefly, but his father bankrolled a farm in Staten Island in 1848. Here, Olmsted dove into scientific farming, importing rare plants, and advocating for sustainable practices way ahead of his time. He even married his late brother's widow, Mary Perkins, in 1859, adopting her 3 children and adding more of his own. This family man phase, it built his resilience, but bigger things were brewing. Fun fact, Olmsted's farm experiments influenced his later park designs, emphasizing natural harmony over rigid structures.
Journalism days, reporting on the South and social change. Now here's where the untold story gets juicy. Before parks, Olmsted was a sharp-eyed journalist. In 1852, the New York Times sent him on a 14-month tour of the American South to report on slavery's economic and social impacts. Posing as a neutral observer, he traveled 4,000 miles by horseback, boat, and train, documenting everything in vivid detail. His dispatches, later compiled into books like A Journey in the Seaboard Slave States, painted a damning picture. Slavery wasn't just morally wrong, it was inefficient, stifling innovation and degrading the land. Olmsted argued that free labor and education could transform the South, ideas that made him a quiet abolitionist influencer. But get this, his writings influenced British opinion against supporting the Confederacy during the Civil War. Back north, he managed California's Mariposa estate, a massive gold mining operation, where he first encountered Yosemite Valley. Struck by its beauty, he lobbied for its preservation, helping pass the 1864 Yosemite Grant Act, the precursor to national parks. This phase honed his social criticism. He saw parks as democratic spaces where all classes could escape urban chaos. Untold tidbit: Olmsted battled depression during these years, using nature as therapy, something he wove into his designs for public health. The birth of Central Park, a revolutionary design. Fast forward to 1857. New York City was exploding with immigrants, factories, and filth. Enter the Central Park competition. Olmsted, then superintendent of the park's labor force, teamed up with architect Calvert Knox to submit the Greensward Plan. Their vision? A pastoral oasis amid the grid, curving paths, meadows, lakes, and bridges that hid the city noise. They won, and construction began in 1858 amid the panic of 1857,
providing jobs for 20,000 workers. But it wasn't smooth. Political corruption, budget overruns, and even the Civil War interrupted. Olmsted served as executive secretary of the U.S. Sanitary Commission, organizing medical aid for Union troops, saving countless lives with his administrative genius. Back to the park. Completed in 1876, Central Park became a model for urban renewal, blending English romantic landscapes with American democracy. Fun fact, Olmsted insisted on scenery over gardens. No straight lines, just natural curves to promote relaxation. Untold story? He clashed with bosses over creative control, nearly quitting multiple times, but his persistence paid off. Today, it's visited by 42 million people annually.
Expanding horizons, parks across America. Central Park launched Olmsted into stardom. With Box, he designed Brooklyn's Prospect Park, often called his masterpiece for its open meadows and woodland rambles. Then came Chicago's South Park, now Jackson and Washington Parks, Buffalo's Park System, and Boston's Emerald Necklace, a chain of green spaces combating urban blight. In 1883, he founded the first full-time landscape architecture firm in Brookline, Massachusetts, mentoring sons who carried on his work. Olmsted's reach extended west. He planned Stanford University's campus, preserved Niagara Falls from commercialization, and designed the grounds for George Vanderbilt's Biltmore Estate, the largest private home in America. His philosophy? The enjoyment of scenery employs the mind without fatigue and yet exercises it, tranquilizes it, and yet enlivens it. He advocated for conservation, influencing the National Park Service. Untold fact, during the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, Olmsted transformed a swamp into a lagoon paradise, but health issues forced him to step back, hinting at his later struggles.
Untold stories, personal struggles, and hidden influences. Behind the genius were hidden battles. Olmsted suffered from chronic illnesses, including what we'd now call bipolar disorder, leading to institutionalization in 1895. He designed the grounds of McLean Hospital, ironically where he spent his final years until 1903. Family tragedies struck, losing his brother John early, financial woes from failed ventures, and the pressure of fame. Yet his wife Mary was his rock, managing the household while he traveled. Untold gems, Olmsted was influenced by European gardens during an 1850 trip to England, where Birkenhead Park inspired Central Park's public access model. He was a feminist ally, supporting women's education, and a social reformer, pushing for integrated public spaces amid segregation. Did you know he married his brother's widow out of duty, but it blossomed into a loving partnership? These personal layers make his achievements even more remarkable, proving resilience turns vision into reality.
Legacy and conclusion. Olmsted's enduring impact. Olmsted's legacy? Over 500 projects, from parks to suburbs, shaping sustainable urban design. In a world facing climate crises, his emphasis on green spaces as lungs of the city feels prophetic. Organizations like the National Association for Olmsted Parks preserve his work, and his bicentennial in 2022 sparked renewed interest. Thanks for watching this untold story. Hit like if you learned something new, subscribe for more American icons, and comment your thoughts below. Remember, next time you're in a park, thank Olmsted for the escape. Remarkable. Proving resilience turns vision into reality.
Lessons for today. How Olmsted's story motivates modern life. But what does Olmsted's story teach us today? In our fast-paced, screen-dominated world, his journey reminds us that reinvention is possible at any age, whether you're switching careers like he did, from sailor to architect, or finding purpose in unexpected places. His battles with mental health motivate us to prioritize nature as a healer, Studies show green spaces reduce stress and boost well-being, echoing his vision. Olmsted inspires modern activists too. Fight for accessible public lands amid urbanization and inequality, just as he democratized nature for all classes. For entrepreneurs, his persistence through failures, like financial setbacks and political fights, shows grit turns ideas into impact. Ultimately, his life motivates us to blend beauty with function, advocating for sustainable cities where nature thrives alongside progress. Let Olmsted's story push you. Step outside, dream big, and shape your world. See you in the next video.